We should be broadcasting here. Good evening, YouTube. Showback TJC. And tonight we're going to be talking about 9/11. When the towers fell back in 2001, and all of the rest of the events then on that day. So with me, I have General Zod. Some people may have known him previously as Lee Cole IV, the most spectacular yada yada yada.
Come on, if you're gonna do my tagline, you gotta be the most airfreight groundbreaking, but never in somebody taking the man, the myth, the legend, the most electrifying YouTuber in YouTube entertainment today.
Honestly, I'm kind of impressed that you still remember how to say that. And then we have currently pictured below him, we have 19K Fox, who's probably got one of the best intros that I've seen on YouTube video. I'm kind of waiting for him to. I'm kind of waiting for him to get that claim from Fox.
Oh, I'm sure it's on the way.
But, and then to the side of him, below me, is Mr. 97 Bravo, and yeah, the two of them. Well, actually, no. Well, crap. How did I surround myself with grunts? What the hell? Anyway,
we are so much more nuanced than that.
Hey, I'm a Navy guy. Old habits die hard.
We won't hold it against you.
The trash talk just like involuntarily comes out. But of course,
we would never say stuff like whose boats did they have to ride on and things like that. We're bigger than that.
But wait a minute. Jeff showed up sooner than I thought. He's like, hey. Now we have a Marine in the bunch. So
look at him.
What? It's one of my stepchildren, or brother from another mother, or whatever.
No, we're the men's department of the Navy. Deal with it.
Yeah.
The Department of Transportation.
That's all right.
The Navy is just the Uber for the Marine Corps. That's it.
Yeah. They say things like that when they go and cash their check that says Department of the Navy on it.
Yeah, but we're the men's department.
Anyway, if you're in the chat, say something. Make yourself known.
Hang on. Let me share this out right quick.
Yeah, I just retweeted it from my end too. I'm gonna share it with my peoples. Irewolf, it's nice to meet you. I've seen your name around, but I haven't had a chance to stream with you either. So special day for this guy.
What's up, Zod? I've heard of you too.
Apparently, my reputation precedes me.
It's not all bad, I assure you.
Good.
It's nice to know, right?
Yeah.
You know, when you go for world domination, you never know which way that's going to swing.
Although when you're wearing tight black leather, you kind of have an idea.
Hey,
Hey, there's an old joke with the Marines. We stole the eagle from the Air Force, the anchor from the Marines, and on the seventh day when God rested, we overran the globe, and now we're running the place.
People tell themselves crazy things.
Yeah, well,
oh,
but I am not a grunt by trade. I'm actually signals intelligence.
Outstanding.
Yeah, basically,
Outstanding.
I'm the guy who sat behind a bunch of equipment you guys weren't allowed to even look at and said, okay, they're over there, go kill them.
I guess I'm the closest thing to a grunt here. Damn.
HMC.
No. I was the guy usually running around the desert in a Humvee that had about 20 antennas hanging off of it.
With the AC
I
running.
know those guys very well.
Yeah, basically, we were the Humvee that said, pick me, pick me.
Yeah,
I'm right here.
I was gonna say something with
RPG
20 antennas
right
on it.
Right here.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, but
Yeah, I would think something with a whole bunch of antennas on it would like indicate absolutely nothing about communications and yeah.
pretty much. Oh, yeah. So, as a question to all of you, were all you in during 9/11?
I was.
No.
Well,
No, I was slightly after.
I was 10 days from graduating boot camp when 9/11 happened.
Oh.
Oh.
Hang on a sec, gotta pick up my dog.
Oh boy.
Come here.
Yeah. Well, I
Meet the killer.
Oh,
That's a dog?
that's the Iron Wolf. It makes sense now.
That's a
That's
big
the
cat.
Iron Wolf,
This is my wife's dog, Max, and he wanted on the bed, but I figured I'd let him say hi.
I joke, but I got one that
Yeah.
size too.
I didn't know you were doing video. Sorry. I thought you were just talking.
no, like I was saying on Thomas's
And
stream
here's the other
last
one.
night.
This is my guy. This is Harley.
Oh, what's up, Harley?
There's the killer.
Hey, Harley.
Yeah, you want to know how he got his name, Harley?
No.
Well, when we first got this dog, his name is Brownie, and I'm like, I'm not calling that dog Brownie. So my wife and I are trying to figure out a name for him. He hears a Harley Davidson go roaring by, and he tries to chase and starts barking, and I'm like, what? It's just a stupid Harley. He looks at me and goes, what? What do you want? I'm like, okay, that's your name. That's all he gets his own
That's
name.
awesome. That's awesome.
Wow. Yeah, no, Jeff, I was in the middle of the Pacific Ocean on my way back from the Gulf when all that went down.
Oh,
And
damn.
for like a quick minute, they were telling us that we may turn around and go back.
I'll bet.
But it was ultimately decided that we were too far, close to home, whatever, something. I don't know what they just didn't think that we needed to go back,
What ship?
So, well, my squadron was attached to the Constellation, which is now.
Constellation.
Yeah, it's now.
not
It's
long after.
yeah. Yeah. They did one more cruise after I left.
Figured it out.
Well, I after I re-enlisted, I switched platforms from EA6Bs, which is
Oh, I love the A6Bs. I've worked with them before.
that's what I was doing, and there was the VAQ 131, the Lancers,
Yeah,
and then my my last deployment, I did the what was it, the 99 cruise, and then the like 2001 ish cruise,
Ish.
and then they did one. Yeah, well, it was around 2001. It was about a year and a half or so later, I think. Between cruises.
Yeah.
And then my they did one more cruise after that. So, but by that time I had switched platforms, and I was actually chilling out in Diego Garcia
Oh, good.
when they were at watching the stealth bombers take off to do the shock and awe during Iraqi freedom.
When was that?
When
My wife
it
was stationed
was
at Diego Garcia. And wait, when were you stationed at Diego Garcia?
That's March of 03.
2003. Why?
Yeah.
There you go.
Were you out there in March 2003?
Yeah.
You might have met my wife, Ray Shawley.
Yeah.
She was stationed at Diego Garcia in 2003
yeah.
March.
Yeah, we
She's
like
a CPM.
my oldest boy was born December 6th of 02,
They don't answer.
and we left for Diego Garcia December 7th.
Yeah, my wife was already out
So
there.
so yeah,
She hit Diego in like
I was there from December to what is it, June or whatever.
yeah. My wife got there October-ish and
Or
didn't
May.
leave until 2004.
I was there September 2002 to August 2000.
Yeah, my wife. Yeah, sorry, I was listening to my wife. She was there September 2002 to August 03. So at Diego, she was a CTM. So yeah, that's her stomping grounds.
She was a what?
Right? Yeah.
She was a Navy CTM. We actually met in A school. We met in Pensacola.
I'm sorry, I'm just a grunt. What's a CTM?
Cryptologic maintenance. Basically, all the high-tech, low drag stuff I would work on. She was supposed to be the one that goes and fixes it. Supposedly.
Oh. Jeez, all right.
Of course.
Very cool.
Man, you lost me at crypto, whatever.
Basically, she was a maintenance technician on a bunch of super secret stuff.
Of course we did.
I can do a sutra with the best of them, but I can't do techno babble. So
Yeah.
that amazes me.
Yeah, basically, any of the very big pieces of equipment that broke down, she was basically able to tear it apart, figure out what's wrong with it, and fix it. So she never did it. Basically, she just press a button, call a contractor, and a contractor to come do that. Who was trained by the Navy, but now gets 6 figures from a contracting firm.
Oh, well, Shazam.
That's how.
Mazel tov, my friend.
Well, that's how a lot of military spending is in the crypto world. A lot of the people behind the scenes get trained to do a job, but don't actually do it until they become a contractor after they get out.
Yep.
It's the funniest thing.
The irony.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if we ever want to cut down costs and wasted spending in military, that would be one of them. Actually pay the people you train to do the job, who will do it for a hell of a lot less than the contractor you're paying 3 times as much. You'd think, right?
Yeah, we had we had a civilian guy at when we were at home at NAS Whidbey. He was an old Air Force guy, Vietnam vet, but he was real cool. But he was our guru.
I'm trying to remember where Whitby is.
Puget Sound.
Puget Sound, that's right. All right. Well, I'm a
Yeah.
truck driver by trade, so I've been all over the damn country.
Yeah. But yeah, there. Well, there's NAS Whidbey, and that's that's where they got the planes, and then they've got Bremerton,
Naval Yard.
Naval Base Bremerton over here next to the shipyard, and then they have
Say Bremerton.
The
That's
sub-
where a lot
they
of
have a sub- they have a submarine. They have a submarine base, and another Navy place. All in the
You said you're on the Constellation.
Puget Sound area.
Is that a carrier? What is
Yeah.
it? Oh, okay.
Uh,
What was that
Yeah,
like?
yeah, it was
Living on
carrier.
a carrier.
I served
Hmm?
on an LHA, the Peleliu. Well, I was attached to the Peleliu for 11th MEU. 2005.
Oh.
Hmm.
I was actually squadron. I thank God. I mean, even though I was, in the Navy, thank God I was never ship's company. But I was, the only time I went on the boat is when the fly boys needed their practice. So, being in for 10 years, I only had about a year and a half worth of sea time. So
I was
Damn.
in 7 years. I had 6.5, 7 months of sea time. I actually had more sea time than my wife. She wanted a ship and never got it. I deployed and got sea time.
what's funny though is after I re-enlisted, I was trying to get shore duty, and they're like, no, can't do it. But I was also trying to go from O level, which is, squadron level, crawling on the planes or under them or whatever, to I level, which is where you're sitting in a shop. And anyway, they couldn't get me regular AIMD orders. But they're like, hey, we have AIMD via VP46. And I'm like, okay, oh, that's a P3 outfit. Okay. Yeah, I'll take it. And that's how I ended up in Diego Garcia
Orion.
for a third deployment. So
Yeah, where I grew up, used to have Moffett Field P3 Orions flying over constantly.
But yeah, they I did that, and then after that was over, then I got my shore duty, and then I bounced. But
I got tossed on my knee. So let's hear some of the other guys, like 97 Bravo. What'd you do, my good sir?
I was a counterintelligence agent, U.S. Army, and basically we took what you guys did and what your wife did and paired it up with what other intelligence groups were putting together. And I went out and hunted bad guys during or after September 11th.
Oh, so CI Humans.
Yes.
I had
Exactly.
I worked with a detachment of CI Human on the near, but you guys do some great stuff, and we actually got a lot of intel from you guys that bounced off us and off other people. So I have a deep abiding love for CI Human, and after when I re-enlisted, I got offered a chance to do it, and I'm like, yeah, no, I'm going to stay in signals intelligence.
Well, I got to tell you, each of the different disciplines within Intel, whether it's human, SIGINT, IMINT, it all comes together in one great
Big fusion
pizza.
pod.
Yeah, it is. It's one big pizza. You look at it and you're like, well, I don't know where everything goes, but when you start pulling things apart, I don't know. It's a great family. We make fun of ourselves. I mean, even across the
Yes, we
branches,
do.
we make fun of ourselves, and Air Force and Navy and Marines. I mean, there were very few CI Marines, but I have to tell you, those guys were guys were top notch. And
Oh yeah. When I went on deployment, because the way the MEU works is there's an organic, headquarters MEU like in the S2 shop, but they
Right.
start pulling from all of the units. Like my home unit was Radio Battalion. They pulled a detachment of us. It was 3 teams plus an OCAC. CI Human had a squad. It was led by a warrant officer, and I think the most junior guy they had was a sergeant. Everybody else was like staff and above. They had a Topo, Image, and we all did a fusion together under the S2.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
we were always bouncing off each other.
You have to. And with the higher authorities, the other 3-letter organizations, you're doing all kinds of, you're pulling from different resources from pretty much around the world to identify threats against the force, as well as threats against the station that you're actually at. So you have blue floor in the area, but where I was stationed in Kuwait, how do I put this? Our area of operation was several countries that surround Kuwait. I don't think I can get into specific details, but yeah, it was very interesting.
I can read between those lines. Trust me, I understand.
Right.
Well, actually, when I was in deployment in 2005, my team actually got the detail to transfer to USS Ogden, which at that point had been launched in 1965, which was about 20 years older than I was. I mean, I swear to God, the rest was the only thing holding this ship apart. But we'd either be hanging antennas off the Ogden, or we'd get on an LCU, which is one of the landing. It looks like a big Higgins boat with the landing ramp and everything. And we just putter around the Persian Gulf doing signals intelligence collections. And I got the one mission I never wanted to get. They were like, "Yeah, we don't know what's here, so map the spectrum." And it's like, oh God, just kill me now.
Well, I have to tell you, they were very sloppy about how they communicated through either cell phones or email or those kinds of things. I mean, we were able to figure out pretty quickly how they were communicating without us hearing them actually communicate. And once that was tapped into, our association matrices just blew up. Because we could figure out who was talking to who and how they were talking to each other. And we were able to just snuff those out.
Well, the one thing I had learned on deployment, signals intelligence was the only discipline that did not need a secondary source to confirm it. You could just action on it like that, which I thought was like, wow. I thought at least, human or Topo with someone would have to, double check us. But I was like, nope, you guys get something, we're on it.
Mm-hmm. Well, multiple things that we would gather through either interrogations or sources or those kinds of things, where we would employ somebody to spy on somebody else, someone who was actually within the country, an actual native to the country, to spy on either the boss or their secretary or any number of people who knew what was going on around them, or at least had heard something. We were able to verify it. Typically we would want two sources to verify what we were getting ready to do, but there were times where we would just take the word of what was being told to us, and we would just go and look out now.
There he is.
Sorry, kids, They never teach you that one, do they? Actually, they did.
But
be very careful where you put certain things in your anatomy. Other things might happen.
Bravo. But one thing I can tell you that I have done in my life, I've been to the headquarters of the NSA.
Very nice.
To Fort Meade, Maryland. I was like, oh my God, I'm in the glass house. This is unreal.
Oh yeah, man. The puzzle box, that place, the Puzzle Palace. Yeah. That place is amazing. Yeah. There's actually, as far as counterintelligence goes, it's extremely interesting. There's the hotels that surround Fort Meade. Yeah, they're like over, or at least they were back in the day, they're over 75% Russian. The people who worked inside of them. You have to ask yourself, why is that? Well, yeah. Once the shroud was lifted off the NSA, it was like, so. Yeah. Their whole counterintelligence branch is, very, very well employed.
One of my gunnery sergeants, you'll love this story. He was an actual, no kidding, had the MOS of Codebreaker. And he was stationed at one of what we call our letter companies at Fort Meade. Mm-hmm. And he didn't tell me what year it was, but it was during Christmas time. And then all of a sudden, every Russian transmitter went apeshit. Just started transmitting. Usually what the Russians do right before they launch an invasion, right? And they're doing this for hours. It's going off like 10 hours. People are losing their mind. And then in the clear, they get XXX, Merry Christmas, 478th Intelligence Squadron, XXX, Merry Christmas, 478th Intelligence Squadron, because they knew we were listening. It's like, oh my God. But
That's hysterical.
There's a lot of stories of people during different times doing that because they know about it.
total gag. I'm just like, and my buddy's telling me this, and I'm just like, wow.
Everybody spies on everybody. We pretend that we don't pretend. We have allies. We have true allies, and then we have true enemies that are clear and distinct on both sides. And everyone spies on everybody. Oh yeah, everyone knows everybody's doing it. And I mean,
it's the nature of the game. If you're not doing it, you're well behind the power curve.
And it's not just that, but you got people who spy on other, like in our own government, we have our own government agencies that spy on other government agencies. They know about that, and vice versa. We have other countries that come over here, hire our spies to go and spy on themselves, and it's a nice little tangled weave of stuff, and it's quite interesting.
That actually is part of the problem as to why we ever experienced September 11th, 2001. Is the intelligence agencies A, not talking to each other, and B, not sharing information, and B, spying on one another to try to get the upper hand to make their organization appear to be more supreme. And that through all kinds of intelligence that had we put together the precursors, we may have been able to stop September 11th from even occurring.
Well, not only that, have you ever seen the movie Charlie Wilson's War? It has Tom Hanks in it.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Beyond the movie, just the history in and of itself as to what became of the Mujahideen and why we were even in the position in the 90s to be hated as much as we were by Osama bin Laden was a direct effect as to that particular conflict, which was what
the Russian
Iron Wolf was when Russia trying to invade Afghanistan and the Mujahideen from different areas within the Muslim states moved into Afghanistan to repel the Russian invasion.
And we armed and funded them to about $1 billion.
Go ahead.
But then through Charlie Wilson's actions, we were able to fund them, we were able to arm them, we were able to train them. And Osama bin Laden was one of those guys. And when the American public found out about it, all the Congress people who were involved in it got nervous. The president got nervous, and we ended up just pulling up stakes and said, "You're on your own."
Yep.
And that began the fire.
Yeah, right as they kicked them out of Russia, it's like, and all they're asking is like, "Hey, could you help us a little bit with rebuilding?" That's all we're asking for. But all we had to do was shell out $10 more million to help them rebuild some schools, build some roads, some feel-good stuff. And they probably wouldn't have hated our guts.
But that's what we do.
If you look at the history, right? Look at the end of World War I, right? Would World War II have really happened if we hadn't gone in there, right? We won, the Allies won, we kicked ass.
Yes.
But then we didn't put any money back in the country. So then why did Hitler rise? Because they were impoverished over in Germany. They were struggling. They needed someone to blame. So Hitler created the scapegoats. He created the power vacuum. And even the Germans who realized what was going on, by the time Hitler had gotten his claws into the government, it was too late. The Nazi regime was in full effect. And you have the same, you see it repeated constantly through history.
The thing
with all of these guys.
The thing about World War II, you're partially right, yes. But the thing is when the Allies won World War I, we put in place things that we thought were going to hold Germany down. And yes, that does include not building these schools, not giving them money to rebuild their country. Yes, that was part of it. But the thing is we had implemented certain safety guards to make sure that they wouldn't do what they ended up doing in World War II. The problem is we, as America, the world was looking at us saying they expected us to handle that. So when there were first intelligence that this man was trying to start another army, they were building ships that weren't warships, but were weaponized. And they were doing all this stuff underhandedly to build an army. And they came to us and they said, well, there's this guy Hitler doing this stuff, and we just said no, he can't do that. We did everything we needed to do over there to keep him from doing this, and then they started taking over territory, going into other people's countries, and then we still at the time didn't want to get involved. The only reason why we got involved in World War II was because Pearl Harbor, and even then we sent people over there. This is something we do a lot. We're going to help you, but we don't want to be involved.
Oh yeah, during the
over
30s, we were so isolationist; it wasn't even funny. Even though FDR saw the writing on the wall, probably around 1936, of we're going to end up in a fight with these people, but there's nothing I can really do about it. And
you guys are all right though in the fact that we are constantly 90% of the time, about 90% of the time, we are the reason why things do rise up, because we don't tie up our loose ends.
Yeah.
We don't look at the easy thing and say, okay, we want to pull out of this area or something. I mean, we had Iraq with Hussein. We helped him at one time. We helped.
Oh yeah, against Iran.
We did this, and then we thought, okay, we'll leave him alone, and we're gonna go. We're done here. And 90% of the time, that comes down to Congress people who do these quick deals, don't think about the repercussion, and then when light starts getting shown on them, then people are like, wait a minute, how did this happen? Iran-Contra affair. These things. These things make Congress people and politicians scared, and so what's the first thing they do? I wasn't a part of it, and they back away from this, and then the whole program goes down and goes away, and the government sweeps it underneath. The problem is typically our military, our police, firefighters, everybody that was affected in 9/11. That's what it affects. It affects the everyday working American, and unfortunately, you still have these people in Washington that like to play games with everybody underneath them. And I mean, it's not, I'm not going to say that the people we have in Washington are out to harm people, but they don't always think through the repercussions. And then at the end of it all, the repercussions start happening, and sometimes it's too late.
I think that there's an argument to be made that there are those within our government that have been elected, that have been around for decades, that have that specific goal in mind, is to chip us down, to knock us down to a level playing field. We had 8 years of that. Mm-hmm. That was pronounced. There was no one was hiding it. It was, the fact of the matter was that we will, having been a superpower, we will come down a notch, and we will allow others to rise so that there's an even playing field. More specifically between us, China, Russia,
EU,
and everything that happened within that period of time that brought the EU together. There is a larger, as far as I'm concerned, there's a larger
effort.
Exactly. To get us to a one world, one government solution. One language, no religion, those kinds of things. And the only thing, and I'm sure chat or whomever is going to completely disagree with me, but the fact of the matter is the only person who's standing in that way is the USA. That's it. Mm-hmm. And if the more they chip away at us, the more they get us to infight, the more they get us to go get behind and support radical ideas like having the UN be in control of our small arms. Things that were taken.
Try that fucking UN. I don't even want to start on those.
So you have.
I was in Africa and watching that shit with the Somalian pirates and the shit like that. I was around for that shit, and I saw the terrible things that these motherfuckers did. And could we do nothing? No, because you had to have your fucking hands tied behind your back because you're waiting for Joe Blow to say, "Oh yeah, it's okay." While these people are getting fucking shot or whatever, it's okay. Now you can go in because Congressman fucking Johnson says, "Oh, it's okay now," and no one's gonna get blamed for it. Well, you got to sit there in the meantime and watch as these fucking ruthless, cutthroat bastards are doing what they do. And make no mistake, for anyone who might tune in or who's watching, These people have no qualms about doing evil shit. I've seen it. They do it, and they can go home and eat fucking dinner and play with their families, because these aren't people, like, these aren't boogeymen. They have wives and kids and whatever else, just like anyone else. The only difference is they can turn off their emotions, slaughter a fucking village, and then go home and be perfectly fine with what they did. And I don't think people realize that shit. They don't realize it. So
no, there's a much deeper, much larger. No, you're 100% correct. There's a much larger, much deeper agenda than just our senators, our Congress people. It is occurring in every country around the world. There's an influence that is dark and shadowy that is determining the direction that it wanted to go. When World War I first happened, and this is something that's over 100 years old. When World War I first happened, those that had power, that had money, saw for the very first time what a war like that could do and what it could mean for the world. If we can get these different countries fighting against each other and not paying attention, then slowly but surely we're going to change their laws. We're going to change their culture. We're going to change their education. We're going to take away everything about them that makes them unique and special to the world. And
well, I have to interrupt.
It was these that. I'm sorry, but there were it was these steps. World War I was the precursor to World War II, and everything that we've been engaged in since World War II has been part of that larger plan to weaken the culture and the spirit of America. Because without America, they would just steamroll the entire world.
Yeah. Well go ahead.
I got 2 points. One, I think there's one other country that is poised to take itself back and go, no, screw the globalists, and that's the UK if they push through with the no-deal Brexit, which I'd say
that's what makes them so scared. That's why the rest of the EU is so scared, because if Brexit happens, actually legitimately happens on October 31st, plus Trump's trade plan with the UK occurs, the EU is going to fall apart in a matter of
the Eastern Bloc will fall apart. And damn it! Oh, this number. And number 2, the way the globalists are trying to do a one world government now, I completely flatly disagree with. But if you watch sci-fi, you know, take The Expanse for example. What's Earth in that time? A one world government. I think in the end, eventually over time, because it ain't gonna happen today, ain't gonna happen tomorrow, probably ain't gonna happen 100 years from now. But I think eventually,
even Star Trek,
even Star Trek, eventually we will get to a one world government. But the way the globalists right now are trying to shove it, they're almost trying. It's almost like they're trying to throw back the clock and create a plutocracy of money, and make us all serfs, which I don't think is going to work. I mean, I think they showed their hand way too soon, especially in the EU. Boy, but look at Italy, Salvini. I mean,
Greece,
Austria has Greece. You know, pretty much the old Eastern Bloc. They're all starting to look at this and go, "Yeah, no. You all need to pump the brakes and back up here." And I don't know if it'll be on the 31st, but when the UK does get out, I hope they do.
There'll be other countries going like, okay, they did it. And then what they're going to do is they're going to start talking to each other singly. Again, more like it used to be. See, here's the thing. Another thing that changed, and you were talking about World War I, World War II, going down the line. Another thing that changed is at one time when we got involved in a war, whether or not we started it, we were first involved or not. When we got involved in a war, we required the losing country or the losing countries to pay us back for having to spend our money to come over there. The loss of life, we gained something for it. That stopped. And when that stopped, we started taking on that debt for going over and being the world's police.
Oh, you know what the greatest joke is, Chris? You know, the joke was, well, I was in the Marine Corps. You want a new country? Just piss off the United States. They'll bomb you to the Stone Age and then build you back better than ever.
Yeah.
On their dime.
And the one world government thing, yeah, I mean, this has been going on forever, and you can see little bits and pieces of it. And the thing I always tell people is within our own government, and like I said, I agree with you. Yes, there are people there specifically for that, and you can tell who they are. They're the ones that come up with these crazy ideas. And I know it's all great. It sounds perfect that we can help every person in America and give health care to everybody and make sure nobody's hungry, and all these programs that are socialist in theory. The problem is you have to understand that this is just not possible. And you look at what the USSR was. That was it. And the only thing you ever saw from the USSR for years were these great pictures of the cities where it worked, because they poured all that money from the rest of the country into those cities, and it was all the strongest people, all the smartest people, and that's the only way it works. And it didn't work for the rest of the country, because the rest of the country was almost dying. Here,
Margaret Thatcher said it best. Socialism is great till you run out of someone else's money.
Exactly. Now, here's the problem that people just don't see. And blame it on media. It's both sides. It doesn't matter. Blame it on whoever you want to say. You have these people on either side who are bickering in public and bickering on TV. And they're I'm this way, and they're different ways. So they're arguing about that. They're on TV. They're doing these debates. They're having these news conferences, talking out, calling out certain people in Congress, and it's the Senate and the president, whoever. But these people, every last one of them, sit at state dinners together, and they all talk together, and they all laugh together, and they all drink wine together, and they're all making money off of each other. So if you think for a minute that this is really going on, what you have to do is you have to look past the smoke and mirrors that they're creating with our media, which, yes, media is biased, but they use it that way, and they know it. So even though people say, oh, the media is biased to this person, the media is biased to this person, they use it for their advantage because they know it's biased.
Well, beyond that, you have to ask yourself, why have we been in Afghanistan for 18 years? Why? Well, we know from back in the day, the reason why we initially went in was because it was used as a staging ground for both Al-Qaeda as well as the planning of September 11th, 2001. Mm-hmm. So within a month, we had troops on the ground. The problem that then occurred, or at least in hindsight, Monday morning quarterbacking, whatever you want to say, is the fact that what we found over time was that there was a definitive way we could have done that decisively, and we could have been out maybe even in 3 years. Is that if they had said, right, if along the border, if along Tora Bora, we had dropped in special forces, Navy SEALs, whoever you want, top tier 1 guys, we had dropped them along the border, along Tora Bora, and then brought the 10th Mountain Division in from Uzbekistan, we would have created a sandwich. And there would have been no place for him to go.
And 15th MU pushing in from the coast like it did, because, I mean, hell, 15th MU literally ran over most of the armed, armed resistance inside of a couple of weeks. 10th Mountain was just icing on the cake.
Right, and all we have to do is blow real hard, and we take over that entire country. So what exactly has caused us to be there for 18 years? And this is ultimately what I have a problem with, is the fact that who has benefited from us being there for 18 years?
The Afghanis.
Well, there's the Afghanis, there's the defense contractors, there's all the contracts that have occurred, there's all these friends of senators and congresspeople and presidents.
The military-industrial complex.
Correct.
I mean, let's not split
it starts
hairs,
much higher
and shit. I mean, oil companies.
Oh yeah, but see, the thing is that the vast majority of what that country produces is heroin.
Yeah, opium
is the basis of exactly. So, what are we do? Why are we not firebombing, napalming, whatever you want to call it, completely destroying their economy? And much like you said, is building them back up again. Why is it taking so long? Part of that is our ridiculous rules of engagement.
Oh,
And
God,
once
they're
those
so
towers fell, if we had gone over there with all hellfire,
Yep.
and we had absolutely gone from village to village and just completely snuffed out anything that we deemed to be a threat, and we had gone in like we had in World War II. Granted, in World War II, we didn't have the Geneva Convention, so let's just get that straight before people start blowing up chat. But because of the Geneva Convention, when we landed there, our hands were tied. We went in there expecting him, Osama bin Laden, and his cadre to escape. And then for 6 to 7 years, he was hanging out in Pakistan a mile away from their version of West Point. We knew this. I mean, there were things that were happening that in hindsight, you're like, this is hysterical. Why are we even, how are we involved? How are we not the best country in the world and we're not figuring this stuff out?
I think you said it exactly the way we need to say this. The Geneva Convention has tied our hands in too many different places. And here's the thing: I think it's really obvious. You give them, you send your people over there, you get your troops landed, you start squeezing, and then we're at the very end of it. You say you got two choices: you give up now, or we're done, and you don't have a chance. And I'm sorry, I understand the Geneva Convention is there for humanitarian reasons, but I look at it the same way. Nobody thought about the almost 3,000 people. Nobody gave them the Geneva Convention.
Well, see, the thing is that when the Geneva Convention was created, we were fighting uniformed army against uniformed army, much like we used to fight tank against tank.
Yeah,
that's not that is not the enemy we're fighting today.
No, and
Okay, and
anyone on this panel who has been overseas knows you cannot distinguish who's a bad guy from a good guy until you find a grenade in your lap, or someone starts firing an RPG or an AK from a mosque of all places.
Okay, and you want to talk about stupid ways we went in? Look at the Second Iraq War in 2003, because I talked to so many Marines who went in during the original invasion. I almost ended up in that original invasion if I hadn't gone to Morse Code School. But the whole thing goes, WMD, 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 WMD. We tear through Iraq looking for WMDs. Now, we didn't find any WMDs.
Wait, hold on. What were we looking for, though? Yellow cake uranium and WMD equaled nuclear technology.
Yeah, but the thing is...
there was no nuclear technology. But where was the biological and the chemical?
Well, not only that, we never secured any small arms. I talked to guys like my gunny, one of my gunnies, when I went out to freaking England when I was stationed out there. I talked to Gunny, who was out in the original invasion. He was like, "Oh yeah, we would find entire caches of small arms, mortars, AKs, rocket launchers," and we were told, "Don't worry about them. Leave them. Go, 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 go." And it's like you're leaving all this behind. And then when we finally, quote unquote, won and started setting up, we were wondering, when we started getting mortared, it's like, where the hell are all these mortars coming from? And all the gunnies are just standing there going.
But where were those small arms found? The vast majority of the small arms, because they knew our playbook, they knew the Geneva Convention. Where were they hiding their small arms? They were hiding them in schools, mosques, and hospitals.
Well, no. We actually found a lot of small arms originally on bases, on military installations. Yeah. And
the initial invasion, yes.
Yeah, we never secured them. We never destroyed them. We just left them for no reason.
I want to ask you guys something here, and this is my opinion, and I don't care. It may not be a popular opinion, but I think one of the places we went wrong, and even George Sr., from what I've read, told his son. When his son said he was going to go in and get Saddam out, his dad said, "Don't." And now, think about who his dad was. CIA. He knew why Saddam was there. And he said, "Don't take him out. You know who he is. We have dealt with him time and time again. We can handle him."
Oh, Bush Sr. could have taken him out in the original Iraq War.
Exactly. And the reason why he told his son not to do it was because he knew we'd end up in a holy war. And we've done that. We have let every faction of Holy Crusader over there have free will now. And the only reason why Saddam was able to handle it was because he was ruthless. He scared the crap out of a ton of people, and they were held in check. And I think that's what Caesar was trying to tell Junior. And the thing is, I think that's where we went wrong. Now, I'm not trying to.
I will tell you right now, as an active duty Marine during that time, we had no business going into Iraq. Zero.
No.
It was ridiculous.
But who benefited most from us going into Iraq and getting rid of Saddam?
Military industrial complex.
Yeah, and that's the
them and Iran.
Yeah.
And
it wasn't until Saddam was gone, because Saddam scared the crap out of Iran.
Yeah, and that's
you have Sunni and Shia, and they were holding each other in check, and Iran wasn't anything until Saddam left. And all of a sudden, you start hearing about the president of Iran, or whatever they call themselves. Ahmadinejad. That little tiny monkey that was over there with the beard, the whole night. That dude was clowning Bush the minute Saddam was hanged. That's precisely what happened. And that's when all the issues started happening over in Iran. They started gaining power, started gaining influence, started getting money from different countries that, quite frankly, we have no business calling they are our enemies and have been for decades.
Well,
China and Russia.
Yeah. And you see, I don't want to go into politics about it, but I don't blame Bush per se. I don't blame Junior per se. I kind of looked at him more like a puppet for Cheney. Say what you want about him, but I never blamed him, because even if he was making the calls, imagine being it was kind of like Truman when we had Pearl Harbor. He's in this war. He doesn't want to be in this war. He's brand new. He was a vice president. Truman was a vice president that was stuck down in a boiler room at the bottom of the White House. That's what they thought of him. I mean, I'm from Missouri, so I know this. I've been told this 1,000 times in classes and stuff. He was down in a little boiler room. So when all of a sudden you wake up one day, FDR's dead, he's now president. They're going like, whoa, wow, we didn't think this one out. Truman becomes president. He's involved in this war now, and everything's going on. He wrote in his own memoirs, he said, I had no other choice. I thought that by dropping the bomb, they would stop immediately. And when they didn't, I was like, what do I do? And they told me, I guess we drop another one. So he's like, I guess we do. This is the problem Bush was kind of created with. It's like, what do we do? What do we do? Here, the intelligence agencies were handing bits and pieces of this plan. We all had the whole thing was there. And like you said, if all the intelligence agencies had talked, had a round table and said, this is what I've got, this is what I got, this is what I got, this is what I got. Look, oh, wow, we know where, when, and why now. And they could have stopped it.
Dude used our own flight school. Our own.
I know.
He was trained by our own flight.
And they were
school,
asking
private
questions.
fucking planes. How does that happen?
They were asking questions. You hear about this now. You hear about them asking questions. So what happens if a large plane goes into a building? And what, they were asking about fuel usage and all this stuff, and they figured this out. But we knew about this, and they knew that they were doing these things. We knew they were going for flight training. We knew all this stuff, and all it took was a bit of time for our government to say, "Look what we've got," and talk, because all Bush's office was doing is saying, okay, I see this. Great. They're going to attack us. It's imminent. You say it's imminent. Where, when, how, why? Tell me.
But see, that's part of it, is that you didn't even have, within the same agency, you didn't even have Florida FBI talking with FBI in San Diego. So when you had these guys who were taking flight lessons, who they admittedly said, don't care how to land the plane. I don't even want to know how to land the plane. Exactly. I just want to know how to fly it. They don't want to know how to take off. That was alluded to. I just want to know how to fly the plane. Mm-hmm. None of this. I mean, you had red flags that were all over the country. Yep. You even had an FBI informant who was renting out their place in San Diego or in that region to two of the terrorists who ended up hijacking one of the planes. Mm-hmm. The problem is that back in the day, they weren't, not only were they not talking, but there was this over-encompassing shadow that was directing all of these different pieces that no one even knew about until just recently. And I'm talking within like the last 5-10 years, people have been starting to pay attention.
Yeah. No,
And a lot of that was precipitated by not only 9/11. So you have these people they had their ears up and they were watching. They didn't trust what the government was telling them. They didn't trust the official narrative. And there's Loose Change and all kinds of different websites that are saying, well, what about this? What about that? And they're asking questions that the 9/11 Commission could never answer, much like with JFK's assassination. When the Warren Commission came out and said, this is the truth, one guy, 3 bullets, 25 exit wounds, and all kinds of other crap, even though JFK's head goes back into the left and he's supposed to be behind him on the right. I mean, anyone who's shot a weapon and has hit somebody knows that a body falls in the direction the weapons, the round is coming from.
Projectile, yeah.
So there's all this evidence, there's Brutafilm, all kinds, and you move forward, and people are like, back in the 60s, we're just going to trust our government. We have questions, but they know what's best for us. But by the time September 11th happened, you have the internet in its infancy, and you have people who are cross-checking other people from all over the nation. And as time marched on, when you get to the 5-year anniversary and those kinds of things, you have people who are making legitimate arguments like, well, how come these questions weren't asked? Or how come the 9/11 Commission didn't answer these questions? I'm not saying I buy into all of it, but when you start hearing more questions than you're hearing answers to, you can't help but go, okay, well, I'm going to have a moment of pause anytime my government tells me anything because of the actions of the past. Yep. Then you have 9/11, 2012, and you have Obama, and you have Clinton as Secretary of State, and you have what appears to me anyways to be a coordinated attack based off of what I've read, a coordinated attack on one of our annexes and the abduction and subsequent killing of one of our ambassadors. And then you have this woman, to put it nicely, talking about, well, what difference does it make at this point anyways?
Fuck.
I can't tell you how much that makes my blood boil because the two things are they're correlated. How September 11th came to fruition, as well as how we reacted. How the Obama administration and at the time Secretary Clinton reacted to the attack on Benghazi. A video. Get the fuck out of here. A video.
The sad part
I'm
is,
sorry.
that?
I'm just gonna say this now, and I'll probably catch flack, but you know what? I do this shit on my channel anyways, and I'm just gonna put it out here because this is how I feel. Fucking Clinton should have been hung. She is such a fucking abysmal person that if I was to think of the
Disclaimer.
devil in human form, I'm sorry, but if I was this bitch,
Personal
had gotten
opinion does not
away-
reflect the opinion of this channel.
I mean, come on, she has gotten away with so much stuff. You know, people lost their lives, and you know what?
He's like, I'll say it. I'm on Showback's channel. I don't give a fuck. Just
Hold on.
Well, hey, let's get Fox. Tell me right now, okay, you've been quiet for, I don't know, brother, a half hour?
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Come on in. Where have you been? What have you seen? What opinions do you have of the two September 11th? Yes, September 11th, 2001, never forget. But September 11th, 2012, where are you in that whole spectrum of thought?
I think our compassion gets in our own way, boys. It doesn't make a shit how much evidence you have on the terrorists or the Parkland shooter. If we bring that to the courts, if we bring that to the authorities, what are they going to do? What are they prepared to do? And the answer is nothing. They just can't bring themselves to do what needs to be done. We've heard this time and time again, gentlemen. We've seen that. We go back and, oh, wow, why didn't we see it? We did see it. You've all been in counterintelligence and intelligence. You know they've seen it. Someone has seen it. No one was willing to do what was necessary to prevent the unthinkable because of our compassion, because of our laws, because of, international treaties with other countries, whatever the case may be. And, look at what's going on now, guys. Look at what's going on in this country. We talk about the one world government. Look at what they're trying to do. Look at the movements that exist within our own country.
The culture war.
Tearing down it starts as a culture war, but it has real world ramifications. Let's blow out the borders. Let's remove religion and God in general from the core of the country. Let's just destroy that main value that we all held as common, regardless of our race, color, creed. We had the American values. Let's blow all that shit up. Let's tear down the walls. Let's let everybody come in. And the last piece of the puzzle is this whole money thing, guys. What's the one thing that limits all their plans is money, is currency. We've seen it over in the EU. Let's get rid of all the currency, and now all we have left is
Euro.
The products.
Right.
Go ahead.
No. Finish your thought. I just had something to add.
Well, I just, it comes down to the commodities. And then once it's just down to that's what we have, who are we going to have run it, guys? We got to have somebody in charge. Now, who is that going to be? I know the politicians. Let's put them in charge of the food, the fuel, the water. I mean, all the classes that we talked about.
Yeah,
and blow out all the things that limit us, like the borders and the currencies and all that, and we can attain that one world government. It's the plan. I mean, I hate to be a conspiracy theorist, but that's the movements that we see. And if you listen, all you have to, don't take my word for it at all. Listen to what's going on around you. Listen to what they're saying about this country. This country is nothing but racism from top to bottom. It's nothing but hate. It's nothing but evil. And the first thing we got to do is tear it all down. And they don't plan to rebuild shit, boys. They just want to knock it down.
No, not at all. It's part of Agenda 21 of the UN. I mean, it's documented. You can find it. And no disrespect to Iron Wolf, but I mean, I'm counting like 5 guys who are public enemy number 1 right now within the United States. And because Iron Wolf has what appears to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, my friend, is a tendency to be more conservative. And oh my goodness, his skin color is a little darker than most everybody else who believes that way. He must be enemy number 1. He's not voting our way. He's not. There is
I get that all the time.
agenda. Oh, I imagine. I mean, look at your shirt. You're a Marine. You got a USA shirt on. I mean, I can only
give
imagine.
you one better.
Uh-oh.
You see it?
Oh, hell.
What does it say?
Second Amendment has a 2 amendment over the back.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, brother. Look, and that's the number one thing that is keeping all of this from actually happening much faster than what they would like, is our right to bear arms.
And the thing is, every time someone says, "Oh, you take away the guns," I always counter with, "How did Stalin kill 20 million people? How did Mao Zedong kill 25 million? How did Hitler kill 8 million people? He took away their freaking guns."
It happens every time. It's the precursor for every major autocratic sort of government that just absolutely steamrolls the rights of their people. Is the very first thing they want to do is take away their guns. Now, you have to go back to World War II, because the Emperor of World War II, after he bombed, or the Emperor of Japan during World War II, after he attacked Pearl Harbor at the behest of his admirals, even though he had reason to believe that this is going to be a problem for Japan, one of the most famous lines is, "I think we just awoke the sleeping lion," or the sleeping bear,
that
or whatever he
was
said.
Michiro Yamamoto. This is, "I fear we have awoken a sleeping giant." And that's
because
exactly what they had done.
Because there's a weapon behind, quote unquote, every blade of grass. That's what's keeping this government in check. That's what's keeping the UN in check. That's what's keeping the globalists in check, is the fact that each one of us has at least one weapon, who believes in the rights of every citizen, who believes in the God-given rights to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Goes back to the Constitution, the Founding Fathers, and God forbid, I know that's a bad word, is the Founding Fathers. Now they just want to call it the Founders. No, Founding Fathers, because they had an idea in mind, and I'm telling you, 200 years later, they have proven to be the smartest people who have ever existed on this planet, regardless of geniuses all around the world, is that they foresaw, you know what? If we give the power to the people, the government will be in check. How do they know? Because they just left tyranny. They were fighting tyranny actively from Europe, from the UK, from England, saying we're not going to be part of your empire anymore. And you know what? Everybody from the farmer to the congressperson is going to have a weapon, and you're going to have to come and take them from us. And how did the Revolutionary War start? Is because they came to try to take away our weapons, and we said, not going to happen.
And I just wanted to add on to that. You could see indoctrination happening. I have a daughter, right? So I do the school system bullshit. Just look at the evolution of the schools in general and what they teach now to what they taught when we were all in school.
Oh,
right?
God.
They don't want to even say the Pledge of Allegiance. They
General
don't want
Zod.
to
General
say
Zod.
the pledge.
General Zod, this is the kind of bullshit they teach in schools these days, just to go on a different track. I was having this argument with someone on Twitter, and they had to, because they're trying to say, oh, we should be like the old Roman Empire. They were so great. And I was like, the same Roman Empire that went around conquering the entire Mediterranean, it's like, oh, no. They were a nice, peaceful people with very peaceful expansion around the Mediterranean. I'm like, what in the name of hell are they teaching you in school?
They teach them the culture of these people and not what. And here's the thing. You know what? If you believe that every great society that's been in the world has been a peaceful group and all intellectuals and stuff, then you're blind. You're absolutely blind. I hate to say it, but blood gets spilled, and blood gets spilled because that's just the nature of human beings.
Oh, Chris, let me jump back in here. Because they're trying to say, oh, we should be like the Roman Empire, we shouldn't have weapons. And I had to explain to someone, do you realize why no one in the Roman Empire had to carry a weapon? So they had Roman legions, and it was flatly illegal, punishable by death on the spot to kill a Roman citizen, and they backed it up with force. And they still argued with me, and I'm just like, what are they teaching you, the young?
The first thing I tell people, like, for instance, let me give you an example here. We're talking about the border wall and stuff. We talk about that at my work all the time. Of course, in certain areas, because I work for a facilities department, so all of us sit in our little office and we can talk openly about a ton of things we can in the rest of the company because of HR. But so we talk about the border wall, and I said immediately when they were trying to fight over the money for this, I said, that's fine and dandy. I said, great, build a border wall. They're going to go underneath it. They're going to go over it. They're going to do all this stuff. And what are we going to do? We're going to sit there and watch them do it. They do it in the places they have it now. I said, there's only one way to do this, and nobody wants to hear about this. You put up guard towers, and if you get within so far, you shoot a warning shot. If they keep coming, you shoot them.
Chris, I have to disagree, because when they put up that big steel fence in Southern California, because California likes to say, oh, we don't want a wall, but they already have one.
I know.
CPB already said, yeah, some people still get through, but it's like 1% of what it used to be before the damn wall all went up.
The thing is,
it does work. It's not going to be completely perfect, but it instead of streaming blood, it cut it down to a trickle that CPB can handle.
Yeah, well,
that's the thing too. Is an actual absolute physical barrier. I mean, you have to look at what was going on. Let's just take for an example what was going on in Israel. Okay, they were having a bombing every week. Okay, I don't know the exact statistics, so don't hunt me or snipe me or whatever. But the fact of the matter is that they were having atrocities occur in their land for the longest time. Going back, it was calculable. Then what ended up happening is once they built the fence, illegal immigration and terrorism that moved over the border dropped. 100%. I mean, it was, you can see the graph. It absolutely
the
drops
minute they put that wall.
Oh, exactly. And so the reason you have in these Democrat candidates, the reason you have since September 11th or even before, you have actually, no, I take that back, because you had Democrats who were voting for the wall expansion while Obama was president.
He actually got, I looked it up, he got $40 billion for border defense, and then did nothing with it in 2014. He got the funding.
He diverted it. And see, that's the problem, though. See, this is the thing that I mean, it's much deeper. And I know we're supposed to be on September 11th today because it is September 11th. But the fact of the matter is the reason we were even in that position on that day, or even in 2012, or the fact that we have been in these vulnerable positions in our lifetimes, has been because there has been a globalist hand who has been moving all these different factions, all these different companies, these
Amen.
CEOs,
Mhm.
Google, Ford. Shit, look at what was going on in World War II. Ford was building vehicles for both sides. Look it up. They were building vehicles for the friggin' Nazis while they were building vehicles for the Allies.
Mhm.
What the hell kind of shit is that? Plus, when you take Preston Bush, who was George H.W. Bush's dad, when you take him into consideration, and that dude was actually actively supporting the Nazis from his bank
Mhm.
in the United States,
Mhm.
I don't even know how the Bushes got to the power that they absolutely were, except if there was something else exterior to the United States that was pushing this agenda. Okay.
Well, you know,
Now, when you
can I-
follow it forward and you look at the Obamas, you look at the Clintons, and you look at the Bushes, oh, how cozy they are. Oh, how cute. At McCain's funeral, you got W passing Michelle friggin' candy. You've got kisses passed back and forth between this, that, and the other thing.
Mhm.
They are friggin' indistinguishable
Yeah.
from one another because the goal is the absolute same. They're just flipping a coin. Are you going to be in charge this year? You're going to be in charge this election cycle. Oh, I don't know. You got
Which
McCain,
side
you got all these other guys.
You know
And
what?
then all of a sudden, I'm sorry. Let me just.
Go
Then
ahead.
you get Trump come along, and this dude flips the script. He's not playing with either side. Why? He's a billionaire himself. He's not taking a dime from the American public. He's donating his entire salary, and he cannot be bought. And they're like, holy shit. What was one of Hillary Clinton's quotes? If this guy gets into office, we're all going to hang. Well, I think we're all waiting for that pay-per-view moment because I think that if they put it on pay-per-view, they would cut the deficit in half, the national deficit in half. I'm telling you right now because McCabe, Comey, the DOJ, you got Eric Holder, you got Loretta Lynch, you've got all these people who are cutting all kinds of deals all over the nation to try to protect the fact that both sides are playing the exact same game. And then what happens? Trump gets elected. How did this happen? She thought, I guarantee you, I will believe this till the day I die if it doesn't come out as actual fact. She was told, you'll win. Don't even worry about
Oh,
it.
yeah, definitely.
Oh yeah.
Look at the polls. Look at the polls that were going into 2016. 98% chance that she's going to win the day of the election.
Yeah.
99.
And
Get it
then
wrapped up.
I went to bed that night. I'm sorry. I'll leave the floor. I'll open the floor and just say, I went to bed that night like, holy shit, I can't believe she's going to win. I woke up the next morning like, I didn't even, is this real?
Yeah.
How did he win? And it was
gonna win.
Oh my god! And from that point forward, I walked into work like, "Hey, what's going on, guys?" Because in 2012, I went to work pissed. How'd this guy win re-election? Knowing now what, if I had known then what I know now about Romney, I don't know if I would have wanted Obama to win, but I sure as shit didn't want Romney to win. So,
Obama was in both elections was the lesser of two evils. Could you imagine the kind of shitstorm we would have been in if McCain had been president?
oh my god! And I voted for that dude. I voted for him and Romney, and nowadays I'm like,
No, I voted for Obama twice because he was the lesser of two evils.
When Trump won, here's what I said about Trump. I said they don't want him in there because here's the thing. Number one, he is not a politician. He can't be played with the way that they're used to because
he can't be bought. Hillary Clinton said that. He can't be bought. This guy should be president because he can't be bought.
Everybody
Yeah.
there's chummy and buddy because they're all part of the same system. And this is just the system, and he's bucking the system. And here's the thing. Whether or not you like the guy or not, I've always said this. He's your president. Get over it. It's how it is. And I will always support my president. I mean,
don't get me wrong. I don't like some of the domestic stuff that Trump does, but I have to freely admit this. I love his international policy. It is like night and day difference between him and Obama.
Yeah.
I mean,
I gotta
just
say
what-
one thing.
Well,
okay.
When the election was going down, I'll tell you what I was doing. I didn't sleep, unlike you, 90. I was up for that whole fucking thing right till the last minute. My ex at the time, she comes in, she went to work, I think at like 3 o'clock, right? I took the fucking day like a holiday because I said, I'm watching this thing all the way through. I was up till 2 in the morning. She wakes up and she goes, are you still watching that? I go, yeah, I had a bowl of popcorn. I'm like, Trump's gonna fucking win this. And when that came out, I turned on CNN, MSNBC, just to watch the reactions, because I go, hello guys, it's a brand new fucking day. Welcome to the real world.
Dude, one of my favorite videos, and I know I've spoken a lot, so Fox and Shellback, you guys jump in. But the video I love the most, and oh my God, it tickles me even to this day, is the video compilation that shows like, oh my God, 98% Hillary, 90, and it's like 3 minutes of how Trump is just going to get destroyed.
Yeah.
And then holy shit, like it's Young Turks, it's MSNBC, it's CNN, and they're like, he wins Virginia, he wins this, he wins that. And you just see visibly, you see, what's that dude's name? Oh, Rachel Maddow.
Oh,
You see that dude, he's like, I'm sorry, I don't know what's her pronouns. I don't know. But anyway, you see the color like he's gonna win. This is the country we're in now.
No.
And she's like she is so close to crying. I laugh every single time. I mean, Carpe Diem or what's his name? I'm forgetting his name right now. Carpe. He does the memes. I'm forgetting it. He knows who I'm talking about. Everyone knows who I'm talking about. But he does these memes. Every time I see that video, I have to stop and watch it. It is one of the most fantastic things in my lifetime that I have ever seen. It is.
Just jump in right one point, and Chris,
I just
look up the YouTube video. It's called Gas, Gas, Gas. It's a Eurobeat song, but it has the day Trump won, and it's playing it and you see all these memes and all these things, and it has that meter of Hillary's gonna win, Hillary's gonna, and it just keeps doing that. It's so great.
That's fantastic.
This is that media influence. Nobody thought Trump was going to win. Nobody. Yeah. I didn't think he was going to win. I was just like, okay, well, you know, it's a good try, but we're done. That's the media influence. That's why they're balls to the wall.
We lost them.
Throw everything on anything but Fox News. Trump is evil. Trump is what is that? And they're doing everything because you're right.
Oh, I mean, the Democrats are pushing impeachment.
Someone will be hound. I'm telling you.
All right. I got two things to say. I got to get off of here because I got work. I think I got to be there at 3 a.m.
Ouch.
It's okay. It happens. So first off, though, I was up like you, Zod, all night watching this, and it was hilarious. It was the best freaking comedy show ever. Because she the numbers would be she was up 50,000 to 40,000 votes in this state or whatever, and as it would turn around and he would win the state, they'd be like, okay, and then they started coming up with every way they had their statisticians up. Well, if she wins this state and this state and this, they were trying to find a way to help her win. Literally, they were trying to will it. It was almost like okay, if we do this, she'll win it, and she'll win it. And it was up until like the last second, and then finally, like later than any other presidential election. Well, I think we're going to call this.
Oh, they were mad when they called it.
Not mad. It was like the end of the world for them. They're like,
oh, like people like Cher were crying in the back. Oh, it was
all right.
Beautiful.
I wanted to ask this of all of you guys. We were talking about 9/11 originally, and here's the deal. I'm not saying that we had anything to do with this and we caused this to happen, but this is what started this downward spiral of where we're at today. You could literally go back and say, at this point, things changed because we gave up freedoms that we would never have given up. We gave countries things, and we started making deals with countries that we never would have before. And our industrial complex started taking the lead on what politics did and what the America did. Do you think, again, I'm being very careful in this. I'm not trying to create a conspiracy theory. And I'm not saying we personally handpicked how to do this. But do you think that our government, parts of our government, and other governments conspired to let this happen?
I'll take that. I don't think we conspired to let it happen. I think we were just asleep at the wheel, and while we were asleep at the wheel, we created the context and situation where this could ferment and happen.
Let me rephrase it. And let me rephrase this, and that's why I kind of had to watch when I said our government. Do you think that there was a collective work of governments or people in governments that looked at possibly helping this along or turning a blind eye to it to make it happen because they knew that that would help this agenda of a one world government? Because do you think that because I can point back to that and say that helped many of these causes get a jump start. And if you look back at a movement, movements get jump starts, and movements typically these jump starts are typically handled by people in power.
I think if they did know something, it was basically a lie by omission, and they just kind of didn't say anything. Because let's be real, I mean, there's this great book series, and it's completely fiction. It's the first book is called Ice Station, and it turns out we sent a force recon in because something down in Antarctica found something, and we have to go secure it. Well, it comes to find out, it's not just a force recon unit. There's British SAS, there's a French Special Forces unit, and then there's what was called the Intelligence Convergence Group inside this book that was trying to control everything and sent in Navy SEALs to kill a force recon team. So it's kind of the whole thing of we have allies, but they wouldn't mind at all to see us take a long walk off a short pier because we're still pretty much the only superpower. And to see the United States get taken down a peg to their level, if they can just watch it happen and not do anything about it, they're just going to watch it happen. Make no mistake about it.
Bravo, what do you think?
100%. I think that much like what Iron Wolf said is that we have been since World War II. Okay, yes, we were part of a deciding factor in World War I. But man, until we joined World War II, we weren't even close to being the superpower that we were. We were isolationists. We didn't want to go back into a world war. It was called the Great War at the time. We didn't expect a World War II. But after the Great War occurred, they just wanted to pull back. You had Wilson, you had FDR. They just wanted to pull back. They just want to let, hey, whatever they do over in Europe, let them play. Fine. We didn't have global industrialization like we have now. We didn't have global trade. It wasn't really a factor in our GDP, our real strong GDP. Then all of a sudden we get bombed and we enter World War II. And since that point, people have been looking towards us as, hey, look, we need your help because shit has gone fucked up once again. And who do we call? Not Ghostbusters, but the United States. Why? They're not going to take any shit. That's why South Korea called us, okay, in the late 50s, and we went over to Korea. That's why we got involved in what was going on with communism in Vietnam was the fact that, going to your point, Iron Wolf, going to your point, Chris Knight, is the fact that there were factors that led into the fact the Gulf of Tonkin incident that occurred. Now, there are books that are out there right now. There are videos that are out there right now that will poke holes in the theory. Were we fired upon? Were we not fired upon? What got us into Vietnam? But again, it comes back to the industrial military complex that we were warned about. Okay, we were warned about this.
Eisenhower.
As Eisenhower was leaving office, he gave that great speech, and he was like, look, pay attention because I saw this shit occur during World War II. It propelled me to want to run for president, and I'm just informing people. He was the most transparent during his exit, what is that called? Exit speech or whatever it's called. Every president since then has been owned. You had JFK, who was the first outlier. Now, morally, did I agree with a lot of how JFK conducted his personal life as president? No, I'll never suggest that I even agree with any of it. But as far as publicly, as far as politically, what he wanted to do, because he eyed the CIA as being one of the biggest problems coming out of World War II, going from the OSS to the CIA, he viewed them as being one of the biggest problems in the military industrial complex. And he was trying to splinter them into 1,000 pieces, quote unquote. And what happened to him? Yep. Then you had LBJ. JFK didn't want to get involved in Vietnam, but the generals wanted JFK to be involved in Vietnam, in Cuba, and all these different areas. And JFK didn't want to play their game, similar to something that's going on right now. Homeboy Bolton was just kicked out as national security advisor because he is a war hawk. Same thing happened. But unfortunately, back in the 60s, Kennedy took a shot to the head. And then who becomes president? Homie from Texas, who is a war hawk from good to go, that says, I will have those ends voting Democrat for 100 years. And what happens? Great society. And all of a sudden, you start having and I mean no disrespect. I'm looking at pure facts. You start having the black community they were an example of marriage, how long people were staying, the divorce rate, I should say. The divorce rate, the black community was the lowest. Black ownership, black home ownership, how many males were staying within the family. And then all of a sudden, through LBJ, as soon as JFK was assassinated, you start having this huge swing, the Great Society. You start having women that are saying, look, the more babies I have while I'm not married, the more money I can make. And then you have generations that have preceded other generations where that's the lifestyle they grew up in. And it was just this pulling apart of the fabric. They have targeted. Look at Margaret Sanger. The whole purpose behind Planned Parenthood was to, quote unquote, get rid of mentally ill individuals. And she viewed what she called the black community as weeds, the Hispanic community as weeds. And they were slowly chopping away. Concurrently, you had guns and Bibles both taken out of the schools. They used to have rifle marksmanship in the schools. You used to have Bubbas drive to school with guns in the back of their trucks, and no one ever got shot.
Nope.
Concurrently, at the exact same time, you had during World War II, what was the most predominant thing that happened to Food Inc.? You had preservatives and additives. Why? Because our troops needed food that wouldn't be rotten within 5 or 6 days of it getting overseas. They developed additives, preservatives, all kinds of other things. What came on the other side of that going into the 50s? TV dinners, canned vegetables, all kinds of other things. And then it is so dense that we can spend 10 more hours talking about how the powers that be have been actively trying to destroy the very fabric that made America great in the past. And this mantra of let's make America great again, there's nothing racist about that. Let's make America what the world used to remember America being, is that America wouldn't take shit from nobody. And if someone was having an issue and they picked up the phone, America would speed the Navy, the Marines, the Air Force, and the Army in their direction to say, you know what, we're not going to put up with your shit, dictator. We're going to kick you out, and we're going to wait for a diplomatic resolution from your people. That's not what's happened in the last 60 to 70 years since World War II or Korea.
Or the Cold War ending. All right, anyways, guys, I got to bounce out because my wife's starting to give me the evil eye. So I'll catch y'all later. Shellback, thanks for having me on. It was an interesting conversation, to be sure.
It was nice meeting you, Iron Wolf.
Yeah, you too, brother. I'll catch you guys later.
Appreciate you.
I mean, my thought process is this is, again, like you said, it slowly builds up and then it takes one slip to really kick in gear. And I'm with you guys a lot about Trump. I support the guy in a lot of things. I don't agree with him and everything. If you ever, and this is probably something I should say, as an American, if you ever agree with your politicians, and yes, he's not a politician, but he is in politics. If you ever 100% agree with these people, then you need to check yourself, because nobody's right 100% of the time.
Except for me.
No, not even you. You. Me, but here's the thing. Look at what the guy's doing. And it is about America. He's trying to build this country back up and trying to give us some honor back about things. And of course the world is fighting us. Of course the world doesn't like that. You know, if you think that during World War II, when the Allied powers had all their leaders up there, Churchill, FDR and Stalin. Of course, Stalin, that was kind of a joke. But when you had these guys up there and they were in these, these pictures and these news articles or these news reels that were going on, if you thought they liked each other, you're sorely mistaken. They didn't like each other. Churchill didn't like the United States. He worked with them because he knew he needed them. Nobody liked Stalin. In fact, the second that war was over, we were in a race to try to secure territory in Germany because we knew if we pulled out, Stalin would take everything. And so, like you said, this has been going on for years and years. But the difference is that in the world, you don't have to like each other, but you can learn to work with each other. And I think that's what Trump's trying to do. He's trying to say, listen, I'm done doing this stuff. Our country's got to stop doing this stuff. People are worried about, the tariffs and all this other stuff. But this is how you actually deal with these other countries. You say, you can think you're going to get what you want, but I'm not going to let you just have it. You're going to have to give me something in return. So, I mean, yeah, I got to drop out too. But no, Shell, hey, I appreciate you having me on. And, this is kind of a bittersweet day in a lot of different ways. One, because of 9/11. Two, my dad's 71st birthday would have been yesterday. And he died 3 years almost ago. So my father was a veteran in the Vietnam War. Actually got hurt at 19 on a Navy ship. And that all but ruined his life. Ultimately, it's all these complications. That's what caused his death. And yeah, for most of his life, he dealt with that and hurt all of his life from 19 on. And I just want everybody to go ahead. I just wanted to say, I want everybody to think about. I want everybody to think about the people who have fought for your freedoms, who have, even the police officers. Doesn't have to necessarily be military. These people that are out there protecting you, and I hope, for the life of me, I hope that there's somebody out there that totally disagrees with all of us here, totally hates our guts right now. But I want to tell those people, these people that we're talking about, the things we're talking about, and the people who fought for your freedoms, the people who were there, who ran into the ground zero and are slowly dying every year. These people didn't care if you don't like them. They didn't care if you don't believe in what they believe in. And all of us who've served are the same way. It wasn't about my politics, your politics, or anything like that. It was an idea. And the idea was, we are free and we have to fight for that freedom. And if that's the one message we can get out today, that's what I want everybody to realize, is that your ability to disagree with all of us is because of us. And we knew that. Maybe we didn't understand that, because we were all really young and stupid. But as we've grown older, like I've seen my father before me, my grandfather, both my grandfathers, as they get older, that becomes more of you start understanding it more and more and more and more until you're until you actually, when you're in, you understand, this is why I'm doing this. I'm not just doing this because I'm going to get a college education at the end of it. I'm not just doing it because I get that guaranteed paycheck every month. Because I know a lot of people, they want to come up with all these reasons why people go into the military. That's not because of it. When you get older, though, you realize exactly why you're doing it. It's because it needs to be fought for. Freedom has to be fought for. And it was so close. And I hope to God people do really pay attention to this election and really think hard about this, because we were so close to losing a lot more. And we're still so close to that. And 8 years is only going to help protect it for so long. But we've got to find the right leaders. And 4 more years, I don't necessarily think is going to hurt. Because right now, I feel like we're protected in a better way. And so that's my PSA for the moment. Guys, I got to go. Thank you very much. You know what? Yeah, thank you, guys. You know, this is an important subject. So, all right. Take it easy, guys.
Thank you for your service, Chris.
Thank you.
I appreciate you accepting the invite.
All right, take it easy, guys.
And I'm gonna be like the couple of kids. I gotta get going myself. I got the girl with me, and I want to spend some time with her, or how that goes. But I wanted to say for myself, Shelbeck, I know we have witty banter. But I respect the hell out of you, man. And I respect the hell out of everyone in this panel. I think that I do understand exactly, maybe not every position that everyone has had here, but I understand from a point. And I remember a long time ago when I talked to my granddad before he passed away, and he said, "You're not going to know," because I used to ask him stories. When you're a kid, you want to know stories, right? He served in World War II, and he was real old. He lived some years, but you want to know them stories. And he just looked at me and goes, "I can tell you, but you won't understand." Now, fast forward and seeing and doing some things that I did, and I was being a corpsman and seeing some of the shit that I seen, and I've had to patch people up and everything else, and I finally understand it. It's like, you don't know what it's like. And honestly, I don't give a shit, which is why I don't talk that much about it. I don't give a shit about the recognition or the accolades. I did it because I truly believe in what the country is. I believe in freedom, and I believe that people have the right to have that freedom. I do with all of my heart. I think the worst thing for me was seeing people who didn't understand how great our freedoms are here. And now I come back and you got these fucking wacky SJWs and these people who want to revert us back. And I was just going, do you guys understand? Like, do you guys understand what you're doing? Like,
they don't. That's the problem. They haven't the foggiest clue, my friend. In your wacky perspective, you are literally willingly robbing yourself of your own freedoms, and you're letting it happen. You're letting the media and you're letting the corporate infrastructure tell you what to wear, what you should like, what you shouldn't like, how you should vote, what you should feel, this person's gender, that person's gender. It's like, no. The greatest thing, and I hope everybody takes this to heart, the greatest thing, and remember this day for one reason, because everything that we went through was so that way we can preserve our ideals, so we can preserve being Americans. And it shouldn't be a dirty word to say. We're Americans, and we should be proud to be Americans. It shouldn't be this ugly thing. And I hope to God when you see this, or when you are celebrating what this day is supposed to be, realize that, because I knew some firemen down there. I knew police officers in New York. I grew up in New York. I was born in Astoria, Queens, man. The city was hurting. My aunt lost her business, and one of my uncles almost died because he worked at the trade center, and his daughter got sick, and thank God she did, because he had to turn back around. And on his way back, boom, he saw it on the bridge. I mean, he's almost supposed to be in there. Think about that when you guys think about this day. Think about how many people weren't that lucky who were in those buildings, and then think about if this is where you want the country to go, because that's where we're heading, folks. When you guys are celebrating this, don't just be like, oh, remember the day. Remember exactly what this entails, and it's our freedoms. We can't let
anybody oppress you. You can't let them take our right to bear arms. You cannot let these people infect your right to believe what you want to believe. You don't like me and you don't like my views? Good, because that's your God-given right. You have the right to disagree. That's one of the beautiful parts about this great country. So, I wanted to leave off on that and thank all of you gentlemen. You're great, and I hope one day I get to be on a panel with all of you guys. I really appreciate being on here, and God bless you all. I know I ended a little bit heavy there, but
I appreciate you coming on.
That was well said. Very well said.
Thank you, and you gentlemen have a good night. I appreciate y'all. Shellback, I'll see you lurking sometime. I know you like to lurk around my chat, so. But 19K, I'll see you on 97. I'm definitely gonna go sub to you. I just don't have my little browser thing up, but it was great talking to you guys, and you guys all be well.
You as well. Take care, my brother.
Thank you.
Peace.
Oh, good Lord. What's going on here?
I don't like this view at all.
Yeah, I hope this thing has been broadcasting okay, because like there's been several times where it's been glitchy on me, so
no, you're good on YouTube. I mean,
I haven't really seen any complaints from the chat, but
no, we had everything's been going well. I mean, I've been following it on YouTube on the second monitor, and I just I mean, I think it should be said that we had the Senate was in our chat for a minute. We had let's see, Real Review 3000. We had the Senate had a lot to say, so you might want to go through that. Then we had Lord Callis,
Biden, lethal. Yeah,
right, exactly. We had Lethal Lightning, which was awesome. I mean, everybody in chat was awesome. I mean, they participated, and everybody was able, from what I can tell anyways on YouTube, what I'm following here. I mean, there's a slight delay, but it was great. It was a great broadcast, man.
Yeah. And we obviously we talked about several other things besides
touched on a few topics,
9/11 and the Twin Towers, but the thing is, I mean, that's kind of why I titled the stream, how I titled it, memories of 9/11 from then until now, and it's like it was said earlier, I mean, what happened then has kind of contributed to all the stuff that's happened since then. So, even though we were kind of off topic, we were still kind of, I think we were still kind of on it. And, I definitely appreciate your guys's thoughts, commentary, whatever you want to say that you talked about. I mean, some of that stuff, I had heard before, and like Ford, the whole World War II thing with Ford and stuff, but I had not heard. I didn't know about I didn't know about Bush 1's dad. That little bit of trivia I had never heard of. But yeah, it's. And the thing is, I mean, granted, there was a little bit of Middle Eastern sentiment, after all that happened, 18 years ago. But um, that at the same time, though, it's like, all these different, um, shades of people, were hand in hand and, treating each other like family, and it's like, you'd almost think that, today you'd almost think that, we weren't ever treating each other like that, like the
You mean like the day after the attacks?
like they the climate or whatever you want to say today is, we've been at, nothing's, we've always been at each other's throats and yada yada yada, and it's, I mean, that's like it was said, even though it was like the worst tragedy that we've experienced in this country, the unity or whatever of that people were showing towards each other was, definitely a good side effect, but now they want us to be like the exact opposite of that. And I'm sure you guys would be in agreement when when I say that I don't want us to have to experience something like that again, just to get that, feeling of, unity and brotherhood, it's like, but yeah, I don't know.
No, I know. I
and
understand
the whole
something that you want to have happen again, but at the same time, if we don't remind ourselves of what happened, of who we were, and how we did come together, and if we don't call out the evil for what it was, we're just doomed to repeat it all again.
Yeah. And like the whole, I mean, people are like, thinking that it was kind of a inside job or whatever, some of the, conspiracy theories or whatnot. Personally, I'd hate to think that we had something to do with it. I would rather think that, I would rather think that it was more a issue of complacency, or like you guys were talking about, people that should have been talking with each other weren't talking with each other, and so it's like having a fish net with a giant hole in it. I mean, but
one thing I would
yeah,
like to throw into that is the fact that, I mean, just what we've watched recently is the fact that we've watched a sitting president and a presidential candidate specifically use our intelligence apparatus to target a free-thinking presidential candidate and the people that surrounded him, and target him for persecution through the election and into his inauguration. So you had a past president who was targeting, and it was a soft coup. For all intents and purposes, from everything I've seen, is that there were multiple attempts using faulty intel and a corrupt FISA court judicial system, or FISA court system, to target and investigate using our counterintelligence apparatus instead of a criminal apparatus to surveil a then candidate as well as a sitting president and the people who surrounded him. Now, You may not believe that. You may not believe any part of that, but taking that into consideration, if that is even a possibility, and from what I've seen, the evidence is marching towards that. If that's the case, and a president did that to a candidate and then a sitting president, and the apparatus was actually trying to remove him because they didn't like his politics, they didn't like his idealism, they didn't like any of the things about him or the people that surrounded him, could it then be possible that our government, in conjunction with other governments, orchestrated something as horrific as 9/11? Now, what do I believe? Now, I've seen all kinds of videos. I've read the different books. I have my opinion. I think the natural distrust of our government is healthy. I don't think that the people that we elect to spend our money wisely have proven that they're capable of doing so over the last, since my lifetime. The very first presidential election I voted in was in 1992. And from that point forward, I've been paying attention. And as I gotten older, the acuity as to what specific people are saying versus what they're doing, actions speak louder than words. You have these Democrat candidates that are talking about, just listen to what the Democrat candidates are saying right now versus when we were growing up in the 90s or the early 2000s and we were cognizant, we were able to vote. Could you appreciate if someone had said, no, we will take your guns. If I become president, we'll take your guns. If I become president, the border wall goes down. And Medicaid, Medicare, free education, all kinds of other things are going to go to people who illegally crossed into our nation. They're not going to go to our homeless. They're not going to go to American homeless. They're not going to go to American veterans. It's not going to go to people who were, born of United States citizens in the United States or abroad, but born of United States citizens who are, by our Constitution, United States citizens. We're going to go ahead and give those benefits, not to our elderly who have paid into it for the last 60 years. We're going to give it to people who just walked across the border, and we're just going to give them everything. Why? Because they're 22 to potentially 40 million voters who, statistically speaking, vote in one direction versus the other their first election. If you inject 22 to 40 million people into this country, you're going to change the landscape of this country, of the judicial system, of the Senate, of the Congress for generations to come. It could be irreversible. They don't want, they're not for Americans. They're for globalization. So much like I said before, and this is my opinion, and everyone's welcome to disagree with it, and by all means, let's debate it. It's the globalists who are trying to, without the United States, they just walk right over everybody else. There is absolutely, without us, that's it. Freedom and democracy as we know it is gone. Our republic is the last bastion of freedom that this country, that this world is ever going to know. And if they take us down a peg, like fundamentally transforming our country, whatever bullshit was going on for 8 years, or even the 8 years prior to him, it is detrimental to our allies around the world, to freedom, to people who want to live free, separate from their government. They want to elect their officials, but they want their officials to work for them in their favor. 9 times out of 10, when that happens in a third world country, forget about it. You elect somebody, that country's done. Like we were talking about before, taking away guns, all kind. Shit, look at Venezuela. It was the richest country in South America for decades. And within 10 years, it's gone from where it was at as the richest nation in South America to an abysmal crap hole. Why? Because of socialism. And that's exactly what they're trying to push on us with all these different big events that are going on around the world. They're trying to force people to voluntarily give up their freedoms. And I don't know. I just feel passionately about what 9/11 in 2001 represented, and then followed just 11 years later in 2012 in Benghazi. They let those people, they literally watched those people die. They let our ambassador get abused and beaten up and dragged through the streets like he was some effigy. It is absolutely appalling. And what ends up happening? All the people involved, they walk free, man. They walk free.
And the thing is, I mean, that's that particular incident, whatever, is the exact reason why I didn't vote for Hillary, and because basically she got away with doing something that any of us had we done the same, especially while we were in the military, we'd be making we'd be turning big rocks into little rocks in Leavenworth right now.
We'd still be in Leavenworth.
At best case scenario.
Mm-hmm.
It's so the it's and the I mean I was born in 71, so I basically grew up in the 80s, right? So like quote unquote my president when I was growing up was Reagan, right? The stuff that's happening today in Washington and whatnot, and the stuff that even the most liberal Democrat in the 80s wouldn't be proposing the stuff that the Democrats today are doing. I mean the Democrats of the 80s would look outright conservative and Republican compared to
Obama in his first term didn't talk like this.
Yeah.
No.
He couldn't hang with these new radical Democrats.
But it's I don't know. I just
you talked about the double standard. I don't mean to interrupt you, but before we move away from that thought, Christian Saucier, that was the sailor who took some pictures in a sub and was sentenced to a year just because he snapped some pictures of the sub that he was serving in. He spent a year in jail and then 6 months electronic monitoring at home. So we got a year and a half. Nothing happened to Hillary. This guy just took some pictures and was just showing it to his buddies and his family.
Yeah.
So you're exactly right. That double standard is it's prevalent.
It's disgusting. It's absolutely.
Yep.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, it shouldn't be something that we're ultimately surprised at. But deep down, when you look at how your government is supposed to function in your favor, I think that when you see what's going on and there's a 2, sometimes 3-tiered judicial system based off of who does what to whom. I mean, you had Hillary Clinton who had a private server in her bathroom, and she was able to transmit classified information using that unclassified server. Like we were saying before, the 3 of us would have still been in Leavenworth if we did that shit.
Oh, without a doubt.
But so then you just have that, and she should be in jail, okay? And the fact that because her server was left wide open, there's a case for treason because she knowingly left classified information. Hell, she was using her classified server to send emails while she was visiting Russia and China as Secretary of State. So those 2 countries were intercepting crap that was going on. Okay, and this was all done on purpose. You have to ask yourself why. Then the people who were involved were allowed to destroy the evidence. Cheryl Mills and all kinds of other people were allowed to destroy the evidence, the devices, the Blackberries, all kinds of other things that had that stuff on it. What happened to them? Why weren't they brought up on obstruction of justice. It is so bizarre. I can't even wrap my mind around it. But you know what, gentlemen? I have a distinct feeling that after Trump, and I firmly believe this because I don't think there's a candidate that's out there that has declared so far that could beat him right now. I think after he's elected in 2020 or reelected in 2020, I think he's going to pull the thread. I think there's enough cookie crumbs on the internet that point in a direction that they are just biding their time. And there has been a plan from the beginning. There are indications that he was even asked to run. And you can look all this stuff up yourself. I'm not going to bore you with the details. But as if there has been a plan to take down what has been going on in this country for the last 20, 25 years. To include the Clintons, the Bushes, and the Obamas, and everybody and anybody who ever served in their administrations. I mean, it's that problematic. And I think that Trump is getting ready to pull that thread. I think he has about a year left. And if he were to win the election, which again, I don't think he can lose, he's going to pull that thread. I mean, even as far as 9/11 goes, even as far as just 9/11, 2001, the average person doesn't realize that we have been at war with Islam since 1801, the first Barbary War. Mm-hmm. And as we go through is one of the primary reasons why the Marines were co-located with the Navy is to protect ships that were going across the Atlantic against Muslim pirates. Then when you fast forward, every step along the way, you start getting into, as these Muslim terrorist attacks became more and more frequent, it wasn't until the 90s. Okay, and who was president in the 90s? Well, in 93, we had the first World Trade Center attack. They put a bunch of explosives in a van in the parking lot of the first World Trade Center tower, and boom, that was the first time we had ever heard out loud the name Al Qaeda. Even though since 1989, the CIA had been tracking Osama bin Laden as someone who could not be trusted. He was an asset of the CIA because at the time we were funding him to fight the Russians. Then, like we talked about earlier, when we pulled out right quick and in a hurry, not only did he hate his homeland of Saudi Arabia for doing business with us, now he hated us. And it was he created the base, or Al Qaeda, to specifically dismantle the kingdom in Saudi Arabia and bring the United States to its knees. And then you move forward. You have the attacks in Nairobi. You have the USS Cole. You have these attacks towards the end of Clinton's administration, where Clinton, it is rumored, President Bill Clinton had the opportunity. Yes, he had the motive to take out Osama bin Laden, and he specifically decided, I'm not going to do it. Exactly. I mean, look at Fox shaking his head. This is not news.
Yep, that's fact.
Exactly. And what ends up happening within 2 years of the USS Cole? Well, 3 years, I guess. September 11th. What we know now as 19 Saudis or 18 Saudis and one whatever he was that found each other in Saudi Arabia, trained all over the world, but primarily in Afghanistan, then used our immigration system against us to then come to our country, overstay their visas, learn how to fly our planes, not land them, mind you, but learn how to fly the planes. And they used our system against us. And the system at the time, the three-letter organizations weren't talking to each other. And hell, you had agencies, you had field offices within the FBI who weren't even talking to each other. And what ends up happening? Boom. Was it allowed to happen? Was it complacency? That's a murky, foggy whole area. I have my opinions because shit definitely points in one direction. But I'm a trained investigator. So if it starts to pull you in one direction, you move in that direction. Now, other evidence may point you in a different direction or give you an idea that, hey, look, maybe you need to go over here. And I've done that as well. But the evidence that's out there is certainly pulling me in one direction, that there is a much bigger, deeper, darker hand that is playing this country as a puppet because they want to see it on its knees. Not so much to bring other countries up, but as we fall, they'll just be able to steamroll over those countries. That's why the rise of the EU was as prevalent as it was during the Bush administration, was because that's precisely what their goal was. Like we were talking about before, the UN. One government, one currency, one language. And what's the best example of that going on right now that we can possibly think of? And that's the EU. I mean, it's very convoluted. It's so dense that, again, we could talk about it for 10 hours and probably still not even get halfway through it. But so many things are so interconnected that the average person is like, Jack, I'm only worried about getting up on time, getting to work and getting that paycheck so I can go fishing on the weekend with my girl, go see movies with my kids, and go hang out. And you know what? Throw a little alcohol down and I'll be just fine. And when the election comes, so be it. I can't, for lack of a better term, after having been in the military during 9/11, I can't go back to sleep. I've only become more awake as I've gotten older because of my analytical skills that I was taught when I was in the military. To dig. If something doesn't smell right, keep digging. Look in areas that you would normally look. And I have not liked what I have seen. And Trump was a breath of fresh air. He wasn't my first choice. Full disclosure, was not my first choice. But at that time, I was still asleep in our political system. I didn't fully understand how it worked on a global scale. So I had my idea as to who I thought should be president. I was even upset when my state, during its primary election, voted for Trump. I was like, what's going on with this guy? But it was soon thereafter that I started paying attention to what he was saying and listening to what he wasn't saying, most importantly. And he wasn't sounding like everybody else. Then when he started debating Hillary, I sat up and I started paying attention. I'm like, did this dude just say because he put her in jail? Did this guy just actually say that on live TV? I couldn't believe what was coming out of his mouth, and I was totally intrigued. He is not the average politician. That's what scares them the most. He's not in the game, but he's been in the game. He's been watching people who have been in the game since the 70s. He has so much dirt on all these people who thought they were his friends. You have Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson, who gave him an award back in the 80s, calling him a racist. What the crap is this? Because they want to destroy him. Why? Because he's being effective. That's the thing that I'm paying attention to. And he is literally sending reverberations around the world that I'm not even kidding you. George Soros actually gave him props over the weekend for how he's treating China. When George Soros is giving Donald Trump props as to how he's handling China, of all places, the world is done flipped upside down, my friends. And we have to pay
what's funny
to what's falling out.
Yep.
What's funny, one of the things, like, I had never heard of that guy until recently, right? I mean,
George
you know,
Soros?
like, yeah. You know, I mean, if like 2 years ago, if you would have asked me who that guy was, I would have been like, yeah, I don't know, you know, but like within the last 6 months to a year, you know, I've heard that guy's name at least once a month, if not, you know, more, you know, on some news outlet or the other, you know. But yeah, it's in, you know, I'm somewhere in between. You know, I've always had a interest in all of this stuff, but I'm also, in the category of, at the current moment, I'm just worried about, going to school, getting to class on time, getting my homework done so I can get this degree, and it's, there's, I don't know, it's almost like there's not enough time in the day to study all this stuff.
That's what they're
There's,
counting.
there's not, right, exactly. No, there's not. And that's why the
But I
media
mean-
works the way it does, is the media will put out 10, 12 things a day. And you're like,
Yeah.
what?
going on?
Someone
What's going on?
died and this what's going. It's complete distraction. It's complete smoke and mirrors. That's the thing that's most disturbing. And I think that for people who maybe think I wear a tinfoil hat, if you pay attention to which media outlets say, I'm not even kidding you, almost the exact same thing throughout the news cycle. They're using the same phrases. They're talking about the same people. They're having the same guests on. It is this reverberating echo chamber to get their message out. When you start paying attention to what news organizations are doing that, as well as which print organizations and websites are, the talking points are so, you couldn't even plan this in a movie and have anyone buy tickets to it. The amount of websites and news outlets that are repeating in themselves and having the same guests on to reinforce the points that they're trying to make about this president, this nation, and God forbid the people who voted for him, those stinky Walmart white supremacists, whatever the hell you want to call them, whatever name is going on this week, because they have nothing else to run on, is the fact that, oh, well, shit, they must all be racist. It has gotten so ridiculous that if you just step back and pay attention a little bit, it doesn't even take that. And I don't discount school and work and those kinds of things, but just take a look. When something big happens, go from website to website, go from news station to news station. Just pay attention to what's being said. There are very, very few that are walking outside of the lines. And those are the ones you need to be paying attention to. The narrative, as I call it, that is the spookiest damn shit that I have been. I mean, I've been in intelligence and I've seen some spooky shit. But stuff that's been going on ever since Obama's been elected, where they're just talking out in one voice. And CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, you can go from news station to news station. I can just rattle them off. And it's indistinguishable. It doesn't matter who you watch. They're all saying the same damn thing.
Yeah.
The ones on the periphery, the citizen journalists, those are the ones that are getting the actual message out. Now, there's a lot of noise, but you don't have to. It is, I think, important if you're going to be involved to kind of just pull in 10, 12 different sources and look at something that you're wanting to look at before you actually get the big picture.
Yeah, I mean, this building that I live in, in fact, that window that you see right there, on the other side of that window is our TV room, and like there's a particular several people or whatever, and like I go in there and it's either CNN or MSNBC, whatever, and it's Trump this or Trump that or whatever, and that's all you ever see. I'm like, there's other things in the world going on, but like you said, that fine young man, Rachel Maddow, I've her
Chris Hayes' brother.
Her and Fredo. Fredo, he's one of my favorites too.
That dude.
That's an Italian slur.
Yeah. Dude, that's the same as the N word. Really?
Yeah.
Come on. Yeah. And then he threatens to throw the guy down a flight of stairs. I'm like,
Look, pay attention to their desperation. They will say something that is completely a lie. It's totally wrong. And they'll broadcast it and talk about it for 2 days. And then the retraction comes on the website, page 4 down here somewhere. They don't even care anymore if it's just a blatant lie. They throw it out there, retract it later so they can pretend to have some, journalistic integrity. And then it's on to the next thing. Yeah. Because you're right, there is a bunch of stuff going on out there that's not Trump, but that's not their focus. It has to be Trump. They have to take him down.
Well, I mean, look at Lawrence O'Donnell went out and said that, Deutsche Bank came out and said that part of Trump's loans had been signed off on by.
That's what I'm talking about. Yes.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so you have this boom. You have 24 hours of people going, "Holy crap! Here's a smoking gun," and then Lawrence O'Donnell very quietly steps in and says, "Oh yeah, we probably shouldn't have said that, but on to tonight. Damn Trump and damn everything he's been."
Right.
The retractions are ridiculous. I mean, the New York Times is famous for that. I mean, the New York Times and the way that they totally disregarded what was going on, even in World War II. They would not report on the genocide of the Jewish people during World War II, even though they were owned by American Jews. They would not report on any of that. You can read Mark Levin's Freedom of the Press. The New York Times, the paper of record, is one of the worst violators. They'll put that shit on page 30. A retraction that no one's ever going to read.
Now, see, you talk about different news outlets and stuff. Mr. Levin is a good one, but you have to get on a computer to watch him. But like, they're, I'm one of the few people that I've seen go inside our TV room here and actually turn it on Fox News. But like, I don't just go with them though. Like I check out the Daily Wire. I check out Levin and some of the other guys that are now on. I think they're all Blaze TV now. And PragerU. PragerU is another good source for people who like really want to know the quote unquote truth. But
Breitbart's definitely they're up there as well.
Yeah, but depending on who you talk to, is and that particular organization right there makes me think of the phrases that get thrown around these days, like alt-right and all this stuff. It's like it's like if you're not of if you're not left leaning, it's almost like you get labeled alt-right and this ist and that ist and whatever, and I don't know.
Well, it goes to, as crazy as it sounds, I mean, you can even take it all the way back to George Orwell's 1984 and the idea that the government was deciding what was okay to say and what was okay to not say, and it was deemed groupthink. So if you deviated from groupthink, then you were labeled a problem of the state. Well, that's precisely what's going on now with the different words that we're allowed to, you can't say that, that's offensive. You can't say that, that's offensive. That may make people feel bad. You can't say that. Well, that is a version of groupthink. I mean, when someone else is deciding what should be coming out of your mouth, now don't get me wrong, I'm not foul. I realize that there are phrases and things to say within a certain company that you should be sensitive to based off of the environment.
Right.
I'm not ridiculous.
It's called common courtesy.
Correct. So, but at the same time, when you're using words like illegal alien versus undocumented immigrant or some shit like
Undocumented worker, yeah.
right, exactly. Or I mean, they want to call felons in California, what was it, justice? I forget the crap that they were trying to sell with that one. It was like, I don't know, but they were trying to actually change the word felon and how someone could be described as like justice involved person. I think that's what it was. Justice.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
Right, because
Yeah.
it states in the law that felons can't have guns. It also states in the law that felons not only can't own guns, but felons cannot vote. It doesn't say shit about justice involved persons. So we're going to go ahead and let all the felons vote.
Well, and justice involved person could be anyone from the person getting prosecuted all the way up to the judge. You know.
Shit. My wife and I we were just called to jury duty. I'm not even kidding you. 2 Tuesdays in a row. First me, then her. We're justice involved persons, aren't we? Because we were called to jury duty. When you change the lexicon, you're doing it on purpose. When you're trying to actively change. Now, don't get me wrong. You know, rad and cool and dude and all these different words
Slang
that kind
words
of just
don't count.
right. Exactly.
Yeah.
When they work their way into the lexicon, that was organic. But when you can't call, when they just decide one day, we're not, as a group, and this goes back to the different organizations reporting exactly the same. The morning they decided that we're no longer going to, describe them as illegal aliens. They're going to be undocumented migrants. Well, to migrate and to immigrate with Merriam-Webster's dictionary are two totally different things. Migration indicates that, yes, you're crossing borders, but it's at no one's invitation, and more than likely you're doing it illegally. Immigration describes it as you're crossing borders, but the tendency is to believe that you're doing it legally. So when you start interchanging those two things, you start changing how millennials, for example, believe that the world actually works. And when you start changing those words around to where you start having Thanksgiving dinner, and this goes back to Obama saying you need to challenge your family members at Thanksgiving dinner. It's about changing the lexicon. It's about changing how these kids, and I say kids, but a lot of them are just younger than me by about 5 years. Yeah. How these people who have kids themselves are actually more worried about how something makes them feel versus what makes sense to them. Does that make sense to allow someone? I'll use the example of, if a family shows up at my front door or I'll go one step further. I walk downstairs one morning and a family's inside my house. And I tell them to get out and they say, no, you will now pay for our medical. You will now pay for our food. And by the way, we're going to be sleeping in your beds. How would you react? You'd flip out. You'd absolutely flip out. Yet that's exactly what one side of the political spectrum is expecting us to do. Not in their districts, of course. No. But in our districts. You see where these people are being dropped off by, historically, ICE, either by land or by air. They're being dropped off in New Hampshire, Vermont, Wyoming. Why? Because these are just these used to be historically red states. Texas, for example, they don't want the border wall to be built in Texas because Texas was beautifully bright red for decades. You can count on it. I mean, it was like the Patriots winning the Super Bowl. I'm just going to bet on what the chances are they're going to win. That's the way it was. But certain cities are turning blue. And certain cities are becoming so dense in population that they're weakening the shade of red that Texas is. Happened to Colorado. Colorado used to be bright, beautiful red. And what happened? Boulder, Pueblo, and Denver got so dense in population with idiot liberals from the West Coast who messed up their own states and then decided to get on a truck and come here. And that's precisely what's occurred. And now, because the population is so dense in Denver, Pueblo, and Boulder, they changed the whole political outlook for the entire state. It's purposeful. It is. The individuals may not understand that they're part of a plan, but there are organizations like Media Matters, George Soros, talking about George Soros earlier, Media Matters, who are going after these different citizen journalists like Michelle Malkin or any number of Steven Crowder, any number of journalists who have just come up from nothing and have created everything. They're trying to chop them down. Why? Because they're the ones who are actually getting the news out. Because Fox News, I'm sorry to say, can't be trusted anymore. Now, don't get me wrong. Prime time Fox News during the week. Okay, I'll give them that. I don't know what it is on the East Coast, but you start having Hannity and Tucker Carlson and Laura Ingraham, those types of people. They're talking heads. I'm talking about everything during the day.
Yeah.
You got to pull back and say, whoa.
From what I've seen of them, like I don't know so much about Hannity, but from what I've seen of Tucker Carlson and what is it, Laura Ingraham?
Laura Ingraham.
From what I've seen of Carlson and Ingraham, I like what they have to say about things. I know that they're more of a. I know they're billed more of as a opinion shows, and not necessarily quote unquote news. But I mean, still, at least for me and a lot of other people, as far as I don't necessarily want to call them mainstream media, but televised news. That channel, at least for me, seems to be the most make the most sense. The like people are actually have a brain in their head, unlike the other ones. But like I said, and like you mentioned Crowder, I love Steven Crowder, but his he actually bills himself. He doesn't bill himself as a journalist or anything like that. He bills himself as a comedian. But the thing is, like, for a comedian, he's talking about all these things that are in the news, and like, I mean, he makes a lot of sense, and like his change my mind segments and stuff.
Love those.
I mean, the boy knows his stuff. I mean, he's like, yada yada yada, change my mind, and somebody comes up going, oh, well, we need to, open up our borders and this, that, and the other thing, because, and then he's like, no, you're wrong. And then they're like, what do you mean? And then he tells them, I mean, he breaks it down for them, and just shoots them down with facts, and this is a quote unquote comedian, but yeah, it's, that's why I tell people, I'm like, if you wanna keep watching your CNN and MSNBC, fine, but like, check this person out and that person out and the other person out, that's on on the internet, and broaden your
Horizon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't just take the word. Don't just take the word of like one or two entities, on things. But
Well, Shell, back on that note, I got to roll, brother. It's 11:30 here.
Yeah. We've been going for 2.5 hours now, and even though the talk didn't quite go like I was envisioning, it was still awesome. And I mean, we did touch on the particular subject
Mm-hmm.
to well enough, I think. But all the rest of the stuff we talked about, I'm glad we talked about it too, because I mean,
Absolutely.
I probably learned a thing or two, or at least relearned, so yeah, with all that being said, for it looks like we still have 4 people tuned in. I'll say Fox go first and let the people who are still hanging out let them know what you're might be working on or whatever.
Well, I'm 19K Fox on YouTube, 19K Fox 1 on Twitter. I'm always digging and looking for something to talk about. Today was a day to really think about what matters, to really think about where you were on 9/11 when it happened. Think about how far you've come. Think about what you could do as an individual to try to prevent that from happening. And I know it may seem like it's little, but it's really not. Remember what we were before. Remember how we came together. Be mindful. Be aware. Look for opportunities to serve in your communities. I think that'll make a big difference. So 9/11, never forget.
Mr. Bravo.
No, I mean that's was very succinctly put. I think that there's not a lot of. I think what we've lost as individuals, and this is pre 9/11, is our ability to change things one person at a time. And what we learned after 9/11 is we had lost that skill, I should say. And on September 12th, 2001, the world was different, albeit brief. Our world within the United States was completely different because regardless of race, creed, background, military, not military, liberal, Republican, conservative, libertarian, whatever you want to call yourself, for about a month to 6 weeks, we were all Americans, and we made great strides in trying to build bridges that had been burnt down by previous administrations or previous ideologies or anything like that. Witnessing that after September 11th was something that I'll never forget, as much as I will never forget where I was when I saw the second plane hit the second tower. It's fused into my brain. Those are two things indistinguishable that I cannot ever forget. And I wish that, although much like has been said before, I don't ever wish another 9/11 on the United States, but I wish there was something beyond American deaths that would trigger Americans to come together as one unity and see each other as brothers and sisters, regardless of what we look like or who we pray to, or who we voted for, and just recognize one another as humans and Americans and start beginning to treat each other that way. That's what I hope moving forward. It's important. It's the fabric of our nation. It's what made us great in World War I, World War II, and every war since then. It's because we're Americans, and we say that with pride. We wear the flag or we serve our country. We're Americans, and we need to start acting like it. And I hope someday soon we will recognize that is more important than the bickering over movies or TV shows or cars or where we live or what color we are or who we pray to. I just hope that one day soon we will be able to come together as Americans and start acting like the Americans of old and try to change the world for better.
Yeah. Well, I think we were, like before that happened, even, like, in the 80s and in the 90s, and it's like we were well on our way to, like the identity politics was like the least, nobody was concentrating on any of that stuff. I mean, it was all, the, different cultures, kind of intermingling and this, that, and the other thing. And it's like, but, now it's like they're, the powers that be or whatever are trying to just separate all that stuff, and but the thing is they're doing it in the name of love and
Compassion.
like yeah it's like, but the thing is it's like, but at the same time it's they do the whole, well, if you don't agree with this, then you're this ist and that ist, and I just it's it's like we're talking about the Make America Great Again, and or the new one's going to be Keep America Great or whatever. But certain people spin it as they go back to the the bad the bad things that were happening back in the 60s, 70s, whatnot, and it's like, oh, it's happening all over again and stuff, and I just I'd like to see us move past all that, because I mean, I don't care, what color you are, I mean, then when I was and maybe this part of it was the way I was raised, but part of it was my military experience. I didn't care, I didn't care what you were, I mean, as long as you as long as you were there to keep freaking plane from blowing me off the side of the ship or whatever, I didn't care, but yeah, so the people that are still here, I appreciate you being here and everybody who popped in, and yeah, just just remember the stuff that happened back in 2001, and just do what you can to do what you can to keep the memory going, and think about how people were treating each other after that, and treat each other like they were, after the terrible thing that happened. Anyway, I'm gonna sign us off and say fair winds and following seas. Good night, everybody.
Right.
Night.